Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, we have Michelle Gardner-Ince, otherwise known as GI, to me, that's how she was introduced to me. Michelle has quite a story she'll share with us, but right now she is the director of the Women Veteran-Owned Small Business Initiative, which is part of the Office of Small Business with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And what she does is she encourages and empowers women veterans to get into owning small businesses. So, Michelle, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Frank. What a delight. I am truly honored. As I was telling someone earlier, just the environment in which I met during your networking hub was just tremendous. I left there as someone who considers themselves to be a halfway decent networker. I had never been in such an environment. And I just want to thank you for your heart of generosity and for your leadership in setting such an amazing environment for people to genuinely give, uplift, elevate, and enable each other. So I was honored to be there, and I'm honored to be here right now.
Well, great. Can you take us through how you got to this point in time? 3 or 4 minutes, just,
Sure.
Step by step. You made a decision at one point to serve your country, and
I did.
And you continue to serve your country, but really kind of in a different sort of a way.
Yes. So first, as you said, you were introduced to me as GI, and all of that happened because two people fell in love. I spent 27 years in the military and met my husband in Korea. We lived down the hall from each other in the dormitories there. And by the way, tomorrow we've been married 31 years.
Oh, there you go.
So we met 3 months before I was leaving Korea, and he didn't want to let me get away. So he proposed, and we dated 3 months in person. And then 3 months after I returned to the States, and the rest is history. But how I got to the Air Force is a little different. My dad was in the Army. He was one of the first Army Corps of Engineers, Black Army Corps of Engineer officers. And the Army Corps of Engineers were responsible for bridges and major roads and major dams around our great nation. And so, he and my mother met at Tuskegee, and I went to Tuskegee, and I was voluntold to go to Tuskegee, and which was a great wisdom, by the way, because with him being the only Black officer on his military post most of my entire childhood, the environment I grew up in it was an all-white environment. And so the whites didn't like me because I was Black, and the Blacks didn't like me because I was an officer's kid, which meant my father made more money than their father. So I was in this no man's land, and learned to really love myself at an early age. And so when I went to Tuskegee, you had to take ROTC or PE because it was federally funded.
Right.
And so the logic of a 17-year-old, because I graduated a little early from high school, was that I would take ROTC because I didn't want to sweat. Well, boy, did I get that wrong. But I joined and absolutely loved it. I knew I wasn't going in the Army because, I would get my fingernails dirty. because I saw my dad coming home with all this dirt on him. And so I went in the Air Force and, got a 3.5-year scholarship and just loved it. And I have been an entrepreneur all of my adult life. So the area I came into in the Air Force is the most entrepreneurial aspect of the military. We run not-for-profit businesses that entail dining facilities, hotels, gymnasiums, golf courses, fitness centers, all have to make a profit. And then we take that money and reinvest it back into the military community for the morale and welfare, of the military troops and their families. So I've always been entrepreneurial. And so I started out as a food service officer and have been a, base commander, which is essentially like being a mayor or a city manager. And, my biggest job was I was in charge of all of the military department stores in the Pacific. And so, because of that entrepreneurial spirit and upbringing, when I left the military after 27 years, I went into business for myself. And I did not do well because I didn't understand how to price myself, how to market myself. And so I came to the VA after, somebody recommended a job. And then I found my niche. I realized if I didn't know how to, I didn't transition well and didn't know how to start a business and to be viable in a business, I needed to learn everything I could on the inside so that I could now help veteran businesses in the federal and commercial market. And so recently, my focus is very, very narrow in that it's a niche market. I am seeking to help women veteran businesses in the commercial and federal marketplace. And you might say, why? And that is really because women are the fastest growing demographic of veterans. By 2024, there will be 20% of the population because the military is made up of almost 18% women. And so a lot of them are joining for education, employment opportunities, but they're also leaving because of health, infertility, family, balance issues, health issues, and just that there's better opportunities out in the civilian sector. So that's how I got to where I am. And so after, being asked, hey, Michelle, what can we do to help women veterans, be represented and utilized more in the federal acquisition or contract arena? I started this initiative. It'll be end of January, will be 2 years. And it has been an absolute delight, and it is a personal mission now, and I'm honored to be paid for it.
That's good.
So I hope that wasn't too long, but that was kind of just.
No. I mean, it is what it is. It's a good story, and obviously there's things, we've known each other for a while now, and there are things there I've learned about you. I think even learned about the military. I think people always assume that when you get into the armed services, whatever branch, that you're given a gun and some grenades and go.
Absolutely.
And that's not true at all.
It isn't.
My brother was in the Air Force, and he did't really do anything like anything like
carry
that.
a gun or any of that.
No, yeah. Thank God he didn't have a gun.
Exactly. Yeah. They call the Air Force the IBM of the military, and we get teased for it, but we're very proud of it. Those of us who are
good
in the military.
Now, and we talked about this before we hit record, but the military, in my mind, and again, it's not relationship driven, right? I mean, somebody enlists. We don't have a draft anymore, but somebody enlists, and it's just like, hey. Well, my brother was in Air Force ROTC, and my brother's kind of a rebel, right? So he's talking to his commander in Air Force ROTC, and the guy's like, well, you need to get your hair cut. And the guy's like, and my brother's like, well, what if I say I don't want to? Well, those are things you can get away with in the business world, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't work in the military. And so when you have that sort of power imbalance, relationships, I don't want to say they're not important, but they seem to be less important. That's my perception. I'm just wondering if that's the case, or when does it change? When do relationships become
Well, well, I think relationships are happening from the very beginning, and the reason they're happening from the very beginning is because of people's varied strengths and varied backgrounds. So you take me, I ran once a year in ROTC enough to, pass my physical training test. So when I got in the military, I was not one of the strongest, fastest when it came to our physical training. Mm-hmm. But yet there are many parts of the military where, everybody succeeds or everybody fails. And you've seen it in movies. That's for real. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is people are incentivized to help the weaker get stronger. But what I love about it is you never forget, and you know this very well, Frank, you never forget someone who helps you get stronger and doesn't make you feel like a burden. Oh, I can remember every single person who has helped me in a time like that, but they didn't, they say nobody cares how much you know until they, they care about how you make them feel, right?
Right.
And so it's very similar. So I remember being in one of our first professional development training, and it had a physical training component. And the score of the team was based off of the slowest person. Well, guess who the slowest person was? Me. So instead, everybody was probably, a quarter to a half a mile ahead of me. And they had reached the finish line. Do you know what a couple of them did?
They came back.
They ran back to get me.
Yep.
But here's the beauty of it, Frank. When I got to the finish line, they didn't treat me like I was a burden. They treated me like we had to bring this last person in so that we all could succeed.
Right.
And that's a feeling that is just unbelievable. Then you switch the tables and it's another kind of activity where it's my strength. Guess who's leading? And these are my peers. And so what happens is as we go up the ranks, you begin to see who plays team, who collaborates, who doesn't, right? And who's all about self. And so, it's very similar when you're at the senior levels and you need to get things done. The people that help you are the same caliber, the same character, the same values as the people that you grew up with when you were young. Some of them are still there with you. Oh, hey, we were stationed together before. And so that camaraderie and that relationship works. And it's the same thing. Know, like, and trust.
Right.
The people that you may not like them, you know them, but you may not trust them. And that's where, it's a big term used in the military, trust but verify. And so the people that their value system and they're out for self, those are the people you gotta go and trust and verify what they're saying or what they're doing, because they're not selfless. They may have to be on your team. You may have to go to war with them, but the relationship is different. It's like they're there, but they're not, they're part of my team. I'm going to use a term that we use in my sorority. You may be in my sorority, but you're not my sorority sister. Okay. And that's probably the best way I could coin it. you may be on my team, but you are not necessarily my team brother, sister, that I know, I would throw my life down for you. I would save your life. See, there's a difference.
Right.
I would save your life, but I'm not going to put myself in harm's way before you. And there's just those people in all parts of society. So,
well, I think that's fair. I think in any you step into a prison and you're going to have the same cross section of people.
Exactly. I mean, it's really something to see. And I'll give you one example. When I was young lieutenant and a senior guy taught me this. He was at the top of the enlisted rank. He said to me, "Lieutenant, come with me. Let me show you how it's done." So our air conditioning was out. Okay, we were in Georgia, so it was hot. And he said, "Call over and see when they can come." And they said, "Oh, we've got a lot of air conditioners out. They won't get there until later." And they have a priority system, of who gets to go first, based on various things, number of people there, mission, etc. He said, "Come with me. Let me show you how it's done." He told the cook, "Give me that chocolate cake that you were going to serve for dinner. Bake another one or change it out and serve something else for dessert." And he took the chocolate cake and we got in the truck, and then we made another stop at the officers club and we got a keg of beer. And then we went down to the air conditioning unit and he talked to the other senior enlisted guy who was in charge of the air conditioning session. He goes, "Oh no, hey chief, we're not going to be able to do it. We've got all these other priorities, da, da, da." He said, "Well, I know your guys have really been working hard. And at the end of the day, they're probably really going to need, something, to just celebrate and thank them. So we brought a chocolate cake and a keg of beer." How about our priority jumped over several people?
Right.
Because the chief had been in 30 plus years and he understood the importance of relationship, of giving, right? I think there's so many lessons there. And I coined it, the influence of the chocolate cake. And it really wasn't about the chocolate cake. It was that I see your people not just as what they can do for me, but I see them also, and let me help you thank your troops. And I think, once I saw that in action, I use that often. And might have been a pie. It might have been Cokes,
right.
Water, bottled water when you're hot. Guess what? You don't necessarily need a beer.
Right. No, that's a great story. That's a really good story. What's the best advice you've ever received? Well, let me back up and ask this question. What advice would you give yourself, the 16-year-old Michelle?
Wow. You're putting me on the spot there. Well, I think I would say a couple of things. And this goes back to, the point I made.
And it can't be take gym class. That can't be.
Gotcha. Okay. Shucks. That was going to be top of the list. But no, it goes back to my experience that I mentioned about, growing up in as kind of a loner. I would say don't let anybody define you or confine you, right? So I felt that I needed to be friends with the Blacks, mainly because I had not been in an environment where I did have Black friends, right? And so I wanted to be defined by their color, but their values of how they treated me were not in accordance with mine. They didn't appreciate me. They didn't They just saw what my father did. They did not necessarily see me. And then, you know, confined from the standpoint of all my life, even to this day, people tell me I do too much. And for a very long time, Frank, I throttled back. I put my head in the corner. I didn't want to outshine people. I didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable. So I downplayed a lot of who I was. And if anybody knows me, if it seems like I'm trying to be the smartest, I'm not. I have a desire for people not to make a mistake, not to make a wrong decision based off of information I have. So, or that I know. And so, you know, I would tell myself to come to that conclusion earlier, to not let anybody define me or confine me, and that it is a constant fight to remain authentic, to remain true to who you are, and to not be your best, to not give your best in everything is a sin.
Yeah.
Because we must glorify God or our maker or whatever your religious base is by being our best, giving our best, even when it makes others who we talked about earlier, who just want to retire and be done, when God is still giving them life every single minute, every single day, to just not give and contribute, to find inner city kids to mentor, to find single parents that need relief. There's so much to do, even in retirement.
Yeah.
Is a sin. Yeah. So, but it's all because retirement has been defined and they allowed it to confine them, and they said, okay, I'm going to retire and I'm going to sit in this box that somebody said you need to retire. So, you know, as someone who's constantly fighting against that, you know, I would tell myself to come out of that earlier, because I really didn't come into that. I was probably 40, 43 before I really came to, I'm just going to do it. Yeah. I'm just going to be it. Right. Well, and I think all those other things would have, I mean, not the things, I learned a lot, but, you know, I just think that's what I would say, tell myself.
Yeah. You start to realize at some point in life, and unfortunately it's sooner for some and maybe not soon enough for anybody, but
yep.
You start to realize that people's criticisms of you are really their problems and not yours. You know,
absolutely.
It's really what it boils down to. And when you're in high school, that's really kind of a hard thing to figure out. So, but it
is. And even after high school.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you're right. You know, people, and you know, anymore people are critical of me. It's like, okay, I appreciate that. And I appreciate your willingness to try and help me improve. What are you working on for yourself? You know, because you're not perfect either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I find the people, Frank, who are trying to give us the most help or criticism, I'm all for learning. I'm a learning leader, but you better be proven in what you're trying to tell me I should or should not be doing.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only thing. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but like you said, you're not doing anything, and you're especially not doing this at a very extreme high standard, but you want to tell me that.
Yeah. Well, there's a line in the Bible, and I mean, I'm religious, not horribly religious, but it goes something like, it's easy to see the smudge on the other person's face and not see them on your own. And yet you have to realize when it was written, there weren't mirrors. So, you know, it really,
isn't that something?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to ponder that, Frank. We'll have a conversation about that. That's very that's deep. I love things like that, because there's so much depth in that it needs to be peeled back. And it's kind of like something you should think on, right?
Yeah,
I love that.
Absolutely. All right, to kind of wrap things up here, let me, I guess this is a fun question, or what do you do to unwind? What do you do when you have a bad day?
Well, one of my favorite things to do is to talk to my young adult children.
Okay.
It is a constant, I always say, wherever they are, go there. When parents tell me, oh, my son this or my daughter that, and I said, wherever their heart is, go there. I may not like where their heart is, but I can't see what the draw is from their point of view unless I go there. I have to meet them there. Right. And sometimes that's at the gaming console. Sometimes that's, wherever. If they're friends, what is it about their friends that's drawing them? What are the qualities? What are the characteristics? What are they doing that's drawing them? So I love to see through their eyes. A lot of my, energy and youthfulness comes from, being almost 60 and having a, 22 and a 24-year-old, because they tell me, Mom, no, that doesn't look good, Mom. No, Mom, that's not cool. That's not how you use that word in context. Or Mom, look at this look at this new app, or look at this new this. And I'm like, and they see it from there, but I see it through the lens of wisdom. I see business opportunities, I see their interests, and then I try to encourage them to seek their own entrepreneurial efforts through what their interests. So I'm really striving to give them exposure to entrepreneurship. So we talk a lot about leadership. They've been learning about leadership for 20 years. So they roll their eyes. Now they get it, because I've been teaching John Maxwell since 2000. So, and they've heard it in every movie, every TV show, every story.
Well, it's, what I've found I've got 3 kids, is they roll their eyes, but when I see them interacting with their friends, when I see them interacting with I come out, right? I'm here and saying the exact same thing I was.
And you're going,
Yep. So they hear me. They
Yes.
They don't want to acknowledge it. So, Michelle, I really appreciate your time on the program. I really appreciate your service to the country, and appreciate your service to Small Business America.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. And I look forward to, just continuing to be part of your circle, and know that I'm honored. And man, there is just an avalanche of blessings coming your way, because I've just seen what you do for so many, Frank, and you bless so many lives, and I know you've blessed mine. So thank you.
To wrap things up, remember, we're looking for some enterprising business types to join our team as franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections. Our franchisees work with entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals in their area to help them become more successful through networking and the exchange of quality business referrals in a structured weekly morning meeting. This is a unique franchise opportunity, you see, because these meetings are in the morning. A successful business type or professional can add this franchise opportunity onto what they're already doing. Again, all of our franchisees do something else. For a couple hours in the morning, a few mornings a week, these franchisees work the AmSpirit Business Connections model. The rest of the time, they're attorneys, accountants, realtors, coaches, and consultants of various kinds. The wonderful thing is that not only do our franchisees realize a financial gain from operating the AmSpirit Business Connections model, but the business networks that they build and develop become a great source of referrals for their primary business as well. Perhaps you know someone, perhaps you are that someone. Whatever the case, to learn more about the AmSpirit Business Connections franchise opportunity, please contact me using the email in the show notes or the one we provide at the end of this program.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.